Welcome to Food for Thought Episode 9, How to Release Your Inner Strength. The reason I started this show is to inspire, empower, and connect people. Connect them with themselves, each other, and life. To draw awareness to the benefits of transformation and the countless possibilities and opportunities that appear for us when we start our transformation journey. To help people see the signs, so they know they're not alone and have the confidence to act from their best self. For all the viewers and listeners to feel inspired to make lasting positive change in their lives and businesses, because we do talk about business as well. The show is not about me, it's about all of the amazing people I've met on my journey who are out there guiding and supporting others. Each one of them inspires me with their talent, heart-centeredness, uniqueness, and devotion to others. If you would like to connect with them, there'll be their links in the description or on the event page, and they can help you transform your life and business. They all inspire me, and I hope they inspire you too. So if you don't know who I am, but most of you will, I'm Matt Love. I'm a transformational specialist working with aspiring and established conscious and spiritual entrepreneurs. I empower them with clarity, confidence, faith, and new abilities through a combination of methods. I specialize in internet presence and overcoming fear, doubt, and other resistances. You can connect with me on my website, @matlove.business, here on Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So this week I'm talking to John Couper. John has traveled and lived all over the world, followed many careers, and married a lovely Kazakhstan shaman. He is shaman or shaman, depending on where you come from. He is guiding others to make the most of their lives through sharing his adventures and the lessons he's learned on his way. He combines years of experience, education, and wisdom into an inspiring method he calls AdventureAttitude. Anyway, enough from me. It's great to have you here, John. Please introduce yourself and fill in any gaps I left out there.
Okay, I think it's a very good start. But yeah, so I'm John Couper. I'm living in Riga, Latvia right now, a few miles from the Russian border. And but I'm using this time that I have since I've retired from being a professor to really do my own greatest adventure, and that is to start a business, a global business where I can help people to open themselves, in this case, release their inner strengths and create an adventure attitude, all of which you'll learn about very quickly here. And it's important because right now, I mean, the chaos and the confusion and the changes of the world make it more important than ever to rely on our own inner strengths. Especially many people don't even trust the institutions anymore. So we kind of need to use our own strength. And luckily, it's actually a natural thing to do. And I think, unfortunately, it's often discouraged, but I'm here to encourage it for sure. And I'd like to help you with whatever problems you have and whatever desires and hopes you have.
Yeah, amazing. And so just out of interest, not one of the questions we discussed, but define some inner strengths for people. What kind of things are inner strengths?
Yeah, well, I think this is a kind of thing that everybody is roughly kind of suspects they have, but they're not really named. I mean, people talk about it a lot in the self-development field, but I'll actually name the particular, what I call inner minds, but the strengths that we have are to imagine and to empathize, and to drive on regardless of obstacles, to connect with other people in terms of both cultural and universal symbols. We have a tremendous number of strengths. A lot of them come from our parents. I was lucky enough to have an unbelievable mother who inspired me and empowered me in so many ways. And I think it's one reason that I've had a life of so much stimulation and adventure and hope, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, even you enlightened me there. So, I mean, I didn't even have a list anywhere near that long when I was thinking of that. So that's really useful. And I mean, yeah, the connection with people, being visionary, like creative, all these things that we do all have inside of us. We just need to, like you say, discover them and nurture them. So why do you think we often struggle to release our inner strengths?
Well, I think there are many reasons. I think we're really, our natural state is to release them. But I believe there's so many factors that work against that. And some of these, for example, are insisting that we should depend more on outside institutions and so on. There's also the cultural idea, that we're not really encouraged to depend on ourselves as much as we might be, as much as we should be. And there's also there's an idea that I'm particularly working against, which is the idea of the conscious and subconscious. And I think that works against our ability to release our inner strengths in many ways that I'll talk about. So I think that idea is actually bankrupt. I think it was outdated 75 years ago, and unfortunately we're still stuck there. So I'm trying in my unassuming, modest, humble little way to transform the idea of psychology.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. We've had an amazing conversation the other day before we did the show, and mind blown, to be honest. So these we are discovering things, and all the great people were just speculating really what goes on in the body and the mind, and coming up with these conclusions. And so you talked to me about the venture response. So what is the venture response? Because just to, I'll let you go on and
sure. Well, I mean, we're always told this idea that we have two responses to stress or danger. One of them is fight, to fight, and the other is flight. And I think obviously those are two responses that are built in, but I think that we actually have a third response that's much more that's just as prevalent as the others, but because it's not so physically obvious that it's been ignored. And that's what I call venture. So even if, let's say, you're on the street and a truck is coming right at you, you still take a split second to evaluate the situation and to see where the truck is and should you jump forward or backward or whatever it is. So this idea of to venture means to extend our senses and our awareness beyond ourselves. And so we always involve this. Now, normally we have a little more time than that, but we always have this opportunity, and it's almost a requirement to venture, to explore what's around us so that we can respond to it. And that's what I teach people how to do.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing because after you mentioned it, I started thinking about it because I'd also heard of another new response they supposedly discovered, which was called freeze, right? But all of them, in a lot of respects, are fairly negative. And what came to me this week was that fight, flight, and freeze are actual responses that happen once you've learned a response. Yeah, they're like dealing once you've had a traumatic experience, right? Like you're an animal, for example, you're being hunted and you need to get caught. Next time, straight away to flight. Yeah, straight away probably to flight or freeze. Whereas venture is the more natural response, which is using that adrenaline. What now? And so it kind of makes a lot of sense because you don't know what to do. So hi to everyone that's here. Great to see lots of people showing up. Yeah, but you don't know what to do. So you have to have that response, and that response, finding a response is easier with, I find, with adrenaline,
Right. So once we understand this, once we realize that we are more in control than we realized, than we've ever been told, because when you venture, that's the verb that I use, but when we venture, you're really assessing the situation, and it's not just a reaction against, and this whole fight or flight thing is like a century old, and it has some validity, but it's so limiting. So this leads to the idea of when we are in a state of venturing, then that's an adventure. And there's something that we do every day, and I think we should do much more. But anyway, so that's my adventure attitude means to be in this a longer state when you can afford the luxury of deciding what you want to do and how to negotiate, really.
Right. So, I mean, yeah. And so you talk about this adventure lifestyle. So why is there a need for adventure?
Right. Well, there are many reasons. First of all, it's just natural. I mean, think about the time of our lives when we're at our most receptive. We're like sponges up until we're like 9 or 10 years old. That is, we are entirely venturing. I mean, our entire lives are venture, venture, venture. That's when we learn the most, and it's when we are playing the most. It's when we're exploring the most, and so on. And so, but there's no reason that it should stop at that point. It can change, need to change, but obviously we need to have a balance between being cautious and being venturous. And unfortunately, the balance by society is pushed way in the direction of safety, way in the direction of security and comfort and convenience. And the problem with that is that, that if we allow it to, it'll take us over. So something that's slightly uncomfortable, we think it's very uncomfortable, and then we think it's painful, and then we think it's dangerous, and so on. So we have this process where we're looking more and more into how we can be safe and secure and happy, which is important. It's very important, but it's imbalanced. And so for most people, they are discouraged from from venturing, really.
Yeah, and I think when we talked the other day, you talked, well, if I get this right, but because of this conditioning, we tend to try and control everything. We tend to try and control our outcomes and control our lives. And with an adventure attitude, we don't know what's going to come, so we can't control it. Yet we're very relaxed and enjoying it, and so, and I think that's such a awakening for me. I remember that strongly is, we're always trying to control things, what's going to happen next. Whereas with an adventure, we're out there, we don't know, and we're so much more relaxed, and things don't tend to go wrong, things tend to go right.
They do.
We deal with things as they come. So Anna's actually asked a question here. So how do you see trauma? Do you take that into consideration when working with people?
Well, I mean, I just had an experience yesterday with a friend of mine in Houston, Texas, who has had a very traumatic situation with a coworker who was extremely aggressive, really sociopathic toward her. And so I talked to her about that, and it turns out that by the end of the discussion, I mean, she was already going in that direction, but it was very traumatic. I mean, she didn't even want to leave her house. She wasn't sure about going to work because she doesn't sure if it would even bring her into contact with this person. So I wouldn't say that trauma is something that I've specifically focused on, but I think that if you think of it not in terms of adventure, but in terms of the four minds, the people who I have helped to release their four minds and to work with them heal very quickly on a psychic level, because instead of compartmentalizing the pain, they process it.
So Anna, we'll talk a little bit more about the four minds shortly. We've kind of we've dropped in and talked about the conscious and the subconscious being basically an old school theory that is actually limiting us a little bit, but the four minds is something we're going to discuss, which is John's discovery through his work, and relates directly to this. So while we're just on the topic of adventure right now, you talk about the adventure style. What's the adventure style?
Well, one thing that's been really nice about, I've been traveling around the world for basically 57 years. And in that time, you can imagine I've met some amazing people, some of whom make me look like a stick in the mud. But what I've found, the common characteristic of all of these people is there's a number of them. First of all, they tend to be cool when things are going wrong. Instead of freaking out, they think, oh, okay, let's work with this. Let's see how we can turn it into an advantage or something like that.
Right.
And they also tend to be very confident. You have to be, because if you wait for everything to come under your control, you'll never take a step. So during an adventure, you really need to have the confidence. I mean, think about walking. When you're walking, you're actually losing your balance one time after another. So you walk, you stand up on one leg and you lean forward and you've lost your balance. But you know that you have the strength of that other leg to catch you. And this is the confidence that's like a very, very simple version of the confidence that adventuring people have, that they develop, because they keep coming across things that, you know, you can swing with that. It might be completely different than what you expected. And it's certainly not what you feel like you can control. And that's fine.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it makes so much sense to me, to be honest. And I think getting to that state of being as well, getting back to, should I say, because we all were there, really helps you understand your instincts, your emotions, these feelings you're getting. What do I do next? Because if you are in a state of anxiety or nervousness, then you are already creating maybe adrenaline in yourself by worrying or too much. And so you don't know, it's not going to come when you need it, or you're not going to notice it because it's already there. So yeah, I mean, really, really amazing.
Well, you can think of it as two different spirals. There's a downward spiral, and that's the one where you don't have the connection with your own inner strengths, and then you get more panicky, and then you get more reactive, and so on, and it goes down and down and down. Or the upward spiral is where you say, I have the strength to deal with this. What can I do? And so then you come up with some options, and you actually spiral in a positive direction instead of a negative direction. And that's what an adventurer has to do. I could spend hours, literally many, many hours, talking about tricky situations I've been in. And in some ways it's easy because you have to deal with it. But, so many situations in which it was like, I really felt sorry for them. They were such morons. Anyway, and then the coffee shop girl was lying on the floor next to me. They got some cables from a computer to tie us up. And I could see she was getting her eyes were like this. So I said, I indicated to her, I winked, and I said, play it up. So all of a sudden, instead of being freaking out, all of a sudden she started playing a role of, oh, I'm so afraid. Oh, this don't hurt me, blah, blah, blah. And it was a game that she was playing. And so she went from being a victim to being in charge of the situation because she was freaking out these robbers who were trying to open the safe. And I was acting like an idiot, and she was acting, like a silent movie heroine or something like that. So, anyway, that's actually a very long story, but that's an example of how I fell into this adventure attitude, and it put us into control. And they ended up getting almost no money after all of this because I pushed it out of the way. So anyway, I'm just suggesting that this is an incredibly powerful way to stay in control and to draw on all of your resources to solve every problem.
Yeah, I can relate. We're looking back in situations in my life. I won't go into too much detail. And so one of the things you just mentioned there is a incredibly good way to get in control. What are the other benefits of an adventure attitude?
Okay, well, I mean, I mentioned the confidence and also the adventure attitude makes us very flexible because as you were saying, if you were not assuming control, then when things go differently than you expect, and of course we start with an expectation, but when they go differently than we expect, then we're not like stuck. Then we can say, okay, so plan A didn't work. What about B, C, D, E, and F, right? So we become very flexible. We also become very centered, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But when we have this adventure attitude, then our strengths are there, and we are acting on what we already know. We're acting on our intuition and our instincts and our awareness, including the spiritual awareness, which for me is very important. And so it prevents what I call the stress shutdown. You've probably all experienced this, where there's something very unexpected and stressful happens, and all of your senses shut down. And all of a sudden, you lose the options. This is the one moment where you need the most options, but you're shut down to have the least. But when you have an adventure attitude, you prevent that, because you go into it with the idea that you're not in control and that you can deal with the stress because you have all of this inner strength. The other thing is that it's a very good way to work with others, because if you're with other people, like at work or something like that, what you're doing is you're really creating a shared adventure. You're collaborating. And when you do that, it has an incredible effect on other people. They love to feel like you are acknowledging them, like you're listening to them and paying attention to what they want and can do, and so on. And this is much better with an adventure attitude, whereas with a controlling attitude, which is all too many people have, especially executives in business, with a controlling attitude, then your options are limited. So you work very well with other people. And then we're trusted. When you have this adventure attitude, for example, let's say if you're traveling with a group to India, something like that, say, there's almost always one person who's kind of a little bit more centered, a little bit more with it, who's a little bit more problem solving and so on. That person always acts like the leaders, and the other people look to them. Well, when you have an adventure attitude, you will develop this almost instantaneously, almost automatically, because you have this centered calm. So this is very important also.
Yeah, I mean, very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So the adventure attitude is very powerful, because I think that we're all actually designed to have an adventure, and we're taught to avoid them. So
yeah, I mean, one of the things I really found interesting actually was like one of the biggest issues I see people facing actually is expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And so I see how this kind of attitude can alleviate that, because you're prepared for things not to turn out as you'd expect. And, that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And so, I mean, it's a really powerful attitude. I've made some notes there. So it's calm, centered, confident, flexible, aware. And then I think also there's going to be an element of excitement / intrigue, because there's always new things going to happen for you.
And collaborative.
Collaborative, which is great for leadership as well. So like you said, the people naturally start to develop better leadership skills with an adventure attitude, rather than always being followers, etc. Yeah, so that
well, if I could just go take a small riff on what you just said.
Sure,
think of all of the people in the world who we most admire, who make the biggest difference, the biggest impact. Every single one of them is an adventurer, without doubt, without question. It is impossible to make a splash without an adventure attitude, because if you're just treading the known expectations, then you will never go beyond the limits. Now, you often hear people talk about, leaving your comfort zone and thinking outside the box. When you have an adventure attitude, this is automatic. This is part of the package.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make that comment that, that all of this really worked together.
Well, I think, really good comment to make, because a lot of the people who are watching are into personal growth, self-development, even business growth, and all of these things require stepping out of your comfort zone.
Right.
They require trying new things, and no matter how big or small, what I've learned recently is our ego tries to protect us from new things if we're not ready to, if we're not aware of what's happening, if we're not sort of going, okay, what's that feeling? Oh, I feel scared because I'm doing something new. I feel doubt because I'm about to do something new. I've never done it before. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I need an adventure attitude. And that's really, so we touched a little bit earlier about the subconscious and conscious being sort of an old school theory, really, and maybe something that's limiting us. Now, you talked to me the other day about The four brains. So what are the four brains?
Okay, I should say four minds. There is a brain which is physical. Yeah.
Okay.
But you probably, I'm sure that you're aware of the idea of the gut mind. There's a tangles, an incredibly complex tangle of nerves in the top of, at the sort of in the middle of our bodies that is actually more active than what goes on in our heads. But it's differently. It processes information in the same way that our brains do, but it does it differently. But honestly, we should think of our whole body as a mind, with units, because what is a mind except it processes, it collects and organizes and processes and distributes and acts on information.
Yes.
Well, every cell in our body does that. Every neuron does that. It's all of the systems are working together all the time to do that and to complement each other. So my idea of the four minds comes from, it was really a very simple question years and years ago, 18, 19 years ago. And it was, when we talk to ourselves, who is talking and who is listening, and what difference does it make? Because we all have these inner voices. Sometimes they're yelling at each other and sometimes they're complimenting each other, usually negative. But however, so that was the question. So I did some research and I boiled it down to what seemed like four different functional minds. Now I say functional because these are not like a lump here and a lump there, but each one is a functional mind. And I'll just quickly describe, there's the one that we know, which is the conscious mind. But there's also the animal, the natural mind, I call it. And that is the mind of drives, the mind of, of desire to succeed and so on. We all have this, and it's important. For the great spiritual leaders in the world still have a very strong drive. That's how they got to where they were. Then we also have what I call the guardian mind. The guardian mind is what protects us. It's actually quite conservative, but it also protects our memories. It protects our symbols that we share with each other and so on. So this mind is very important for communicating, for creativity and so on, because it remembers virtually everything in our lives. And then there's the conscious mind that and then the fourth mind is what I call the idealistic mind. And that's the one where we dream, where we hope, where we are spiritual and so on. And this is a very important function because it looks beyond the concrete and the immediate into the future. Not in the same way that our conscious mind does the same thing, but this one is the one that looks for what's good. It's sort of it's a purifying process. So the reason that I like this construction is that, here, before that, we had this idea of the conscious, which thinks rationally, which of course, very often we're tricked by our conscious mind. And then everything else, all of these other things that are important to us, like art and like spirituality, all of these things are just kind of dumped together in this basement called the subconscious that maybe we can get to and maybe we can't.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that here we have this term subconscious and upconscious. This does not say what it is, it says what it isn't. So the subconscious is below the conscious. The unconscious is not the conscious. And so we have the 90% of our lives or more is not even named. It doesn't even have a name.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is I've given them four functional, practical, positive names that they can use to help us. Now, I'm not fixated on the number four. This is what I came up with. I did a lot of research. I interviewed a lot of people, and these four minds seem to cover, for the first time, all of the range of human experience that I've been able to come up across. And when I've asked people, nobody has come up with something important.
So, yeah, just before we go on, I just wanted to ask anyone watching what their thoughts are on this. Do they see how this can fit in? Because to me, I'm going to ask some more questions here because I'm intrigued as well. And I can see how things fit in. So I'm going to start from the top though. But did you have something else you wanted to say before I ask another question?
No.
Okay. So specific conscious mind, functions of the conscious mind.
Right.
You know, what are they? What in your
That's a
perception?
good question. I kind of skipped over that. Yeah, so the conscious mind is very good at pulling things apart and putting them back together differently.
Okay.
So, by the way, I'm a huge fan of the conscious mind. I'm a scholar. I'm an academic, and I've read thousands and thousands of books. So I love the conscious mind, but it does have limitations. However,
Right.
another of its strengths is that it's incredibly nimble. It can leap across time and space instantly. And our other minds aren't able to do that so well. Our conscious mind is also very good at evaluating, at judging. So let's say that you have three options. It's right. It's healthy for the conscious mind to say, of these three, this is the one that I think will work best. Now, it doesn't always know. But yeah, the good question. The conscious mind is the part that pulls things apart and that deals with all of these marbles rolling around on the table and turns them into a pattern that it can then decide is good or bad.
Right. Oh, yeah, amazing. So it's an analytical kind of academic. And so you said it can sort of jump forward. And so you mean it can think further forward than most minds and think back, or
Yeah, I mean, if I say, think about the end of the planet, 5 billion years from now, your mind can leap to that idea. It might not be right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but you are able to think beyond space. You're able to think beyond time, because the mind has this incredible ability to fire in every direction at once. It's very, I mean, all the supercomputers in the planet couldn't compare to it. What's in the front of your head.
And go, sorry. Yeah.
No, go on.
Yeah, no, I just wondered. So, yeah, I mean, this is something we do not take into consideration as we use technology and start to rely on technology, that we're still the best technology in a lot of respects. Yeah, by far. It's just unfortunately all this Facebook. Well, when Facebook had a lot of rubbish on it, they coined the term very well, misinformation.
Right,
and I think that's such a relevant thing, because it's not just social media that's been giving us this. It's been, with our life, we went from not speaking to understanding to understanding. I mean, there is no trying. There's doing or not doing, and so they're understanding, but then there's always a new understanding as we evolve and use our technology better.
Well, it's interesting. Professional magicians, people who do magic at the table in a nightclub, they say that the easiest people to trick are the most educated.
Right. Yeah.
The people with the most developed frontal cortex are easier to fool. And with all of its strength, its unquestionable strength and glory. I mean, glory is the word for it. That doesn't always do what we needed to do. So this is a segue to what I think is good to talk about now, which is, people have asked recently, well, what happens? I mean, let's say that, that you go from one activity to another. Does that mean that only one mind is working? No, and that's the whole point. They are naturally collaborative. They really work with each other to solve problems, because each one of them is a little bit of a specialist, like you would have in an office. And so it's very important to understand. So, for example, let's say that I'm working on statistics. Obviously, it's going to be my prefrontal cortex that's spending most of the using up most of the energy on that. But it doesn't mean that I don't have also some drive. It doesn't mean that I don't also have some imagination. So in any situation, one mind will tend to come to the fore and take charge in the same way that it would in an office group. And so, if we're talking about spirituality, for example, we might think about the conscious, we might use our knowledge, our analytical ability to think about what we're being told, but primarily we're using the idealistic mind, in my terms. So they work together if we allow them to as a team. And that's really the core of what I'm talking about today, of the whole subject of this, is how to create the team of inner strengths to accomplish whatever you want.
Okay, so and we talked earlier about creativity. So where does the imagination fall into this?
Okay, well, creativity is an interesting case because it doesn't only come from one place. I mean, think about people who are very creative. You know, Pablo Picasso was a groundbreaking creative artist, but he was also extremely intelligent. And so there were many times when he would solve problems using his intellect to, for example, choosing a particular kind of paint or something like that. I'm guessing, but anyway, let's say. So, so creativity is, there are certain situations in which all of our minds work together best, you know, and these are situations, for example, well, okay, I'll tell you an example of when they work together. I was in Kathmandu, Nepal, 37 years ago.
Right.
And
yep.
when I was there, I was walking around. I had a week free or so. And I walked by a shop and this young man came out, a Tibetan man, and he said, "Can I give you a cup of tea?" So I went and he gave me a cup of tea. It was his family's tea shop. And he said, "I'm studying English. Can you please come here every day and just spend half an hour helping me with my English?" Right? I said, "Yeah, that's great." I mean, and by the way, the tea is made with butter that's 100 years old. They buried in the ground for 100 years. So it's very distinctive.
Wow. Yeah, very distinctive.
I still remember the taste of that tea. But anyway, okay. So I was in there teaching. After 5 days of this, he said, "You know what? In 2 days, we're going to travel back to our village in Tibet, across the border. Would you like to come with us?" I thought, oh, yeah, no kidding, you know. And so here I was with people I had just met, right? Speaking a language I didn't know. I was crossing the border into China. I would have been executed if the Chinese had caught us there. And yet I couldn't wait to do this. So I walked with them for 3 days. They gave me a very important job. It was the only one I was competent for, which is making the yaks go in one line. You know? And so I learned about their culture. I learned about their history, the language, the everything, the spirituality. It was just an amazing course in a week, you know. And it's all because I did three things. I had three kinds of adventures. The first, I had a micro adventure. This is one that has no penalty. You know, it's just something you do, and it's a nice little experience. And that is walking in and having a cup of tea. And then I had what I call a mini adventure. This one was a little bit more demanding, but not much. It's still safe. And this was teaching him English and reorganizing my schedule to teach him the English there. And the third one is what I call an immersive adventure. And that's the one where you're 100% involved, where every part of yourself, every strand of your being is completely engaged in the experience, right?
Okay.
And that's what I had for a week. It was a total, I knew nothing. It was all new. Everything about it was brand new. And so it was an incredible experience. Of course, I still remember it after 37 years. And all of the things that we do in our lives that are most memorable, that are most meaningful, that are most important to us, all of them are adventures. All of them are things where we're doing something that's new, there's change, or there's stress or something like that, but we don't care about the change and the stress because the experience is so strong. And on this trek in Tibet, I was cold, I was tired. It's incredibly cold in Tibet in January, by the way. I was all of these things. It didn't matter because look at what I was experiencing around it. So when you have this, you don't worry about a bit of discomfort or a lot of discomfort because you are passionate and you're full of life.
Yeah. So, I mean, how can we incorporate adventure into our lives or ensure that we're incorporating adventure into our lives?
Well, this is the reason that I brought up those three levels. I would say that there's a rough guide. It's a good idea if 3 times a day, every day, you create a micro adventure. This is like shower water that's 5 degrees cooler or something, or something. Walking across the room, as my brother says, with the lights off. So these are little things that we can do, and these open us to the mini adventures. And these are things that could have a small cost. For example, we're driving a different way to work. We could get lost. We could be a few minutes late, but we're seeing a new part of the city or something, whatever it is. So mini adventure is a little bit more demanding, or quite a bit more stimulating. But anyway, but that opens us up to the immersive adventures. Now, by the way, and I should invite you, if anybody wants to know the best way to travel around the world, contact me and I will tell you, because no kidding, this is it. This is it.
Okay, yes.
I will teach you how to have an incredible adventure anywhere in the world, because I've done it many times. I developed the system. But anyway, so if you can go through 3 micro adventures a day, 3 mini adventures a week, and then let's say 2 immersive adventures a year, your life will be so enriched. It will be so empowered.
Wow. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. So 3 micro adventures a day. So I can think of one immediately, which is the cold shower. I do the cold shower every morning. I love it, actually, because we don't have central heating here in Portugal. And so what most people think is cold shower cold. Well, actually, it's so much warmer when you get out of a cold shower.
Right.
Yeah. You're not cold. When you get out of a hot shower, you're cold. Yeah. You're like, oh, you can feel that cold air. But when you have a cold shower, you get out and you're like, oh, I'm not even cold. I'm not shivering, nothing now. And it makes the day much more manageable. So I really love that.
Keep going and you'll become Wim Hof.
Yeah, I will, but I did it the other way around. I did the Wim Hof training first. And what's very interesting about that, I found anyway, was I didn't get to the ice baths, but I was doing the breathing and everything. And a couple of my friends still have been doing ice baths for about a year, or cold baths anyway, like below 4 degrees, 3-4 degrees. And I started doing the cold showers on the recommendations of a spiritual coach. And I found that my body just naturally went straight into Wim Hof breathing, without even any conscious thought. But I had learned the technique, and I suddenly realized I was doing it instantly, and it was regulating. I don't shiver in cold showers. I don't shiver. Recently, as it's getting colder, it's December now, I get goose pimples, so it is quite cold, but So why go on, sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention one interesting mini adventure that I had. I was traveling with a friend in India, and we went by a traditional rickshaw, that a man was pulling. And I said, if I give you 150 rupees, will you let me pull your rickshaw? Wow! And I had to make it up to 200. But anyway, he agreed. So, because he was very nervous, he didn't know what this strange white man was doing. So it was only for like a block, but I had the experience of pulling a rickshaw. And now I remember this experience. This is a mini adventure. What does it cost me? 200 rupees. I mean, seriously. So if we can do little things like that, like asking your daughter to tell you the story at night or something like that, anything that's just a change will strengthen us.
Yeah, so new experiences, try things in a different way. So 3 micro adventures a day, 3 mini adventures a week, and 2 immersive adventures a year. Yeah, and I think, many of us don't have these goals. I'm going to use the word goals, to do, that really give us that edge on life, give us that excitement, give us that intrigue. And
it doesn't hurt your health. I'm 74.
Yes, brilliant. Absolutely.
I have the energy when I was 34. I can wear the same clothes as when I was 34. I mean, this has not hurt me physically, that's for sure. I don't know how much of it's played, but I do know that if you stimulate yourself every day, your nervous system gets used to it and strengthens.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've just recently had some health checks, and because there's various things in my family, and I got the all clear, so I'm all good. Just still waiting for the blood test, but otherwise all the scans and everything was really good. And I had quite an adventurous life when I was younger, so I'm quite surprised. I'm like, wow, what brilliant news! You can actually be that adventurous. And but actually, what I realized is I was training myself almost because I was younger to be more resilient when I was older. I ate healthily, slept fairly well, you know, and did a lot of exercise. And so, you know, in the end, it all turned out. I think it's, and I've never been one for taking medication or man-made substances. So I think that also has helped me quite a lot. Yeah. So how do we use the FourBrains during an adventure, for example?
Well, when, as I was mentioning in Tibet, I had no choice. I mean, everything was new, everything was challenging to some extent or another. But we can combine that. For example, let's say that you're in, let's say that you're doing statistics, you know, and here is your forebrain going boom, boom, boom. But then you say, okay, how does my guardian mind feel about this? You know, so all that you do is you open the way, you open a conversation with each mind. First of all, and this is most important of all, you accept that these minds are working for you, and you respect them and you embrace them, because we are taught too much to suspect our own inner strengths, especially by people who want to control us. But anyway, so the first and most important thing is to say, I have these powers and I respect them. I will follow them. And sometimes I won't be happy with where they take me, but I will always benefit from it one way or another. Okay. And then what you do is you think about them in terms of being a team. So for example, let's see, what would be, let's say that you are, that you have had trouble with a project you're doing at work, right? And your boss is called you in, and you know it's going to be critical. You know it's going to be a problem, right?
Okay.
So one way that you could walk in there is to be very meek and very shy and like this, and people think that's what makes bosses happy. It doesn't. The other thing you could do is go in and say, "I demand da 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 da." Will that work? No. What you do is you treat it as an adventure. And if you treat it as an adventure, then you can work with your boss of saying, what can we do to solve this problem in the future? You can accept responsibility for your part of the problem and point out what went wrong from your point of view, right? All of these things that could go on. So what you end up doing is that you're impressing your boss as being a leader, as being a natural problem solver, because you're assertive at a quiet level. You're not pushy at all. You don't raise your voice or nothing like that, but you're assertive in the sense of saying what you believe happened, what you think will happen in the future, and so on. That is exactly what will make you successful in business or anything else. And so you are using your mind by saying, you know, my guardian mind, you know, what do I remember? What situations do I remember that I could use in it right now? You know, and your animal mind is saying, I'm not going to be frightened by this. You know, some bosses are kind of bullies. Well, the worst thing to do with the bully is to show fear, right? And the natural mind is very good at not showing fear. And then you could also use your idealistic mind to say, what is, for the company's point of view, what is the perfect solution that we could do? Why is this valuable to learn from and to benefit from, right? And so if you're in the middle of that, you can't sort of cycle through everything all at once. But if you have trained your minds to work together, and if they are aligned, if our minds are aligned, they're our greatest strength. If our minds are working against each other, they're our greatest weakness. And so if you work a little bit on that every day, and if you, let's just say that you've got 5 minutes, you're waiting for a bus or something, and you think, okay, while I'm waiting for the bus, what is my guardian mind telling me now? What is my natural mind telling me now? And just to start to pull them together a little bit and open the way to them. If you do all that, then they will naturally do what they're designed to do, and that is to work together and help you.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think, like you said, like anything, becomes much easier once you've started doing them. You're talking about the thinking on your feet, we call it, coming up with solutions and answers in an assertive way, and takes practice. Yeah, because if you haven't done it before, you haven't got built like neural pathways to get to all these places and to do these things. But the more you do something, the easier it becomes, definitely. So, I mean, I really know. So how can people learn more about the 4 minds, for example, and learn about the adventure attitude? Is that something that's going to be available for people? Or
it is. Before we do that, let me give one tip that I wanted to offer.
Sure, please do.
Really works. It really works. Well, let's say that you know that you're going into a stressful situation. Let's get away from work and talk about a blind date. Okay. Now, so this is somebody who is really attractive and you really want to impress and so on. It's pretty stressful. Okay, so give yourself 5 minutes outside before you go into, let's say, the restaurant to have this blind date or whatever it is, And so the first thing that you do is you breathe in very deeply, and then you breathe out even more deeply. Okay. And as you know, that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So automatically your stress level is dropping. And then the second thing that you do is you force a smile. You don't feel it, but you force it. And that's because our bodies actually react to the constriction of these muscles to think, oh, he's happy, or something. So we actually feel happier when we fake a smile. It's crazy, but it works. And the third thing that you do is you just say to yourself with great conviction, wow, this is going to be an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you do that, you're setting yourself up for success and not failure. You're setting yourself up for being relaxed and competent and so on. And then during this situation, whatever it is, you keep saying, you remind yourself, probably silently, but maybe not. But anyway, you keep reminding yourself, wow, this is kind of an adventure. I've never heard about this. I've never thought about this. So, whatever it is, it's new. And so instead of painting it as a threat, you're painting it as an opportunity during this experience. And then at the end, you take another 3 minutes or whatever it is, and you stand and you collect yourself. You breathe in 3 times, out 3 times. You smile, a nice plastic smile. And then you think, wow, that was an adventure.
Yeah.
And the beauty of that is that you have now organized yourself so that the next time a stressful situation comes up, you're ready for it. So.
Yeah, I love that, because I mean, there's a phrase again that comes to mind, and that's the stories we tell ourselves. And my perception on that is it's a lot bigger than like, oh, it's okay, the rambling that goes on in our minds. It is literally just how we frame things. Completely. So like you said, as we're walking into something, this is going to be an adventure. Isn't really anything scary. And walking out of a terrible situation, that was an adventure, is a much better thing than going, that was the worst thing that ever happened in my life.
It all about. We don't have to have a big transformation. We just need to do little things like that a few times a day, and we will change more to be more ourselves. Anyway, so you were asking about my program, which I appreciate. I'm on my biggest adventure of my life, and you're part of it.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad to be.
Thanks. So this adventure is at my age, on this very small pension. I am starting up a new business, and this new business is bringing together all of the things that I've learned and done and experienced over all of these many, many years, decades. And so this is to create a program based on the idea of the 4 minds and inner communication, which I didn't talk much about today, but the inner communication, the voices in our heads. And all of this I found incredibly useful with thousands of people. And so I already had one 5-day challenge, which went really well. I'm going to learn from that and have 2 more in January. And then in January, also probably like the 20th or something, toward the end of January, I'm going to have offer a 4-month-long paid consulting type of training program. And this is specifically for people who are making a major transition in their life. It could be a new job, a new career like mine. I'm an expert, new career now. It could be a big project, something like that. Anybody who has some major change in their lives, and they want to make the stress almost non-existent, and they want to be, it's very competent and forceful, will I hopefully find that very useful and interesting, because it is what I've done, with thousands of people and done with myself. So,
yeah, no, it sounds wonderful, and I think it's definitely a solution for people who want to, like you say, move forward with their life with more confidence, with more intrigue, like more rather than fear, and become better leaders and collaborators as well. Unfortunately we didn't get to talk about the voices in your head, because we touched on it a little bit, didn't we, is how many voices are there. But I think it's been really amazing talk today. Anyway, we're right on the hour there, so hopefully still 8 people watching, so that's really good. And thank you all for coming, and thank you, John.
Of course, thank you.
Pleasure. And I just just for anyone that didn't catch the beginning, so we started today talking about the adventure and adventure attitude and the power of it, and how it can help you be centered and calm, confident, flexible, aware, and create a bit of excitement and intrigue in your life. Then we've also touched on the how you can have adventures, and so there's 3 main types of adventures in John's program, or in reality, to be honest. I love them really. It's the micro adventure, the mini adventure, and the immersive adventure. And so on John's recommendation, 3 micro adventures a day, 3 mini adventures a week, and 2 immersive adventures a year are very fulfilling and satisfying. So, and for those people that were listening, subconscious and conscious, they may not be helping you right now, because there is the 4 minds from John, and that's the conscious mind, the natural mind, which other people will know as the animal mind, and people have been breaking that down into lizard, monkey, everything else, fish, I mean, who knows, and the idealistic mind, also the guardian mind, and the idealistic mind. And so, really powerful stuff there, John. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that came.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you all next time.